You won't believe what went down on WWE RAW. Just as Jey Uso battled Bronson Reed in an intense match, chaos erupted backstage. Roman Reigns returned, only to be blindsided and brutally attacked by Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker. The Bloodline is crumbling, and the road to SummerSlam 2025 just got even more dangerous. Jey Uso's match against Bronson Reed ends with Uso and Roman Reigns getting destroyed by Reed and Bron Breakker on road to SummerSlam. What you're about to hear is not a match result. It's not a storyline twist. It's not just another chaotic Monday Night Raw segment. This was war. War backstage. War inside the Bloodline. War that spilled out from the locker room walls into the soul of WWE itself. It started with a match. A scheduled singles bout. Jey Uso vs. Bronson Reed. No stipulation. No title. Just violence. Just retribution. What no one knew, what no one could have imagined, was that this match would become the spark to ignite a war that's been waiting in the shadows for months. Bronson Reed didn't come alone. And neither did Jey Uso. By the end of the night, Jey Uso's back would be driven through equipment crates. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, would be left face down on concrete, unmoving. And the one standing tall? Not family. Not brothers. Not warriors of honor. But wolves. Opportunists. Monsters fueled by resentment, fury, and unfinished business. Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker didn't just assault two of WWE's most iconic figures. They shattered an unspoken rule. You don't touch the Bloodline, not unless you're ready for war. But before the final punch landed, before the camera feed cut and Raw went dark, there was something else. A sound. A whisper. An exchange between Roman and Jey that may have sealed the future of the entire Anoa'i dynasty. Let's rewind. Earlier in the night, the mood backstage was already tense. SummerSlam was drawing near, and everyone, from top champions to low-card brawlers, could feel the weight of the coming storm. For Jey Uso, the night was supposed to be simple. A match against Bronson Reed. Settle the score after last week's backstage shove. Clear the air, maybe get a win, and focus on the looming threat of Solo Sikoa. But something was off. Backstage officials whispered that Roman Reigns had flown into the arena hours earlier, unannounced. There was no press. No camera crew. Not even Paul Heyman to introduce him. Just silence. The kind of silence that only comes before a hurricane. And then, confirmation. Just as Jey stepped through the curtain for his entrance, he caught a glimpse. Roman. Standing behind a barricade, face unreadable. Watching. Waiting. Jey's eyes met his. No nod. No recognition. Just a cold stare. A tribal judgment that screamed volumes. As the bell rang, Bronson Reed wasted no time asserting dominance. His size alone turned every Irish whip into a car crash. Every slam was a declaration, you don't belong here. Not next to Reigns. Not next to Solo. Not even in the main event conversation. But Jey Uso is nothing if not a survivor. The man who once fell in line is now a lone warrior. He fought with the spirit of a man who has lost too much to lose again. Every super kick, every crossbody, it wasn't just offense. It was defiance. And then, just as Jey began to mount momentum, the match was cut short. Not by disqualification. Not by count-out. But by darkness. The arena lights flickered. The Titantron glitched. And in that exact moment, cameras in the back caught movement. Roman Reigns had been found. But not by fans. Not by officials. By Bron Breakker. The son of a Steiner. The powerhouse nobody can control. And behind him, Bronson Reed, still fresh from the match, blood boiling, rage unsatisfied. What happened next wasn't a beatdown. It was an ambush. The security feed showed Roman standing alone in a hallway near the production trucks. He had just placed a call, some say to Paul Heyman, others think it was to Jacob Fatu. But he never finished it. Breakker struck first. A running knee to the ribs that folded Roman where he stood. The camera jerked, but not before catching Roman's phone clatter to the ground, screen still lit, call disconnected. Then came Bronson. A freight train of fury. He didn't speak. Didn't yell. Just grabbed Roman by the hair and slammed him headfirst into a steel door. Blood pooled beneath him. For years, the story of Roman Reigns was one of control. Dominance. Calculation. But in that moment, the tribal chief wasn't just caught off guard. He was powerless. And the message was clear. The era of Roman's protection is over. As news of the assault reached the arena floor, the crowd gasped. But Jey. He didn't hesitate. Mid-match, he rolled out of the ring and sprinted up the ramp. No finish. No victory. Just urgency. When he reached the hallway, Roman was already unconscious. EMTs surrounded him. Officials yelled into walkie-talkies. And standing just beyond the chaos were Reed and Breakker. Arms folded. Unbothered. Triumphant. Jey lunged. What followed was not a fight. It was a sacrifice. Jey tried. He swung fists fueled by desperation. Landed shots that staggered Reed. But Breakker's spear? It snapped Jey's momentum in two. He flew backwards into a stack of equipment. The crash echoed like thunder through the backstage area. And then, something no one expected. Breakker leaned in close. Not to mock. Not to threaten. But to whisper. No mic picked it up. But one lip reader online claims he said this: SummerSlam isn't about titles anymore. It's about survival. At that moment, the question wasn't why Reed and Breakker attacked. The question was who sent them. Because make no mistake. This wasn't random. This wasn't just two frustrated superstars lashing out. This felt coordinated. Planned. A precision strike to the heart of the bloodline. And as Roman was stretchered into the ambulance, his eyes flickered open just long enough to meet Jey's. Jey, now seated against a wall, blood dripping from his temple. He didn't speak. But Roman did. Just one word. Jacob. And with that, the questions began to spiral. Was Jacob Fatu involved? Did Paul Heyman know? Was this a betrayal from within, or a rebellion from without? For months, we've watched factions splinter and mutate. The new Shield. Solo's rogue empire. Heyman's silence. But this moment, this assault, felt like the tipping point. Because for the first time since WrestleMania, Roman Reigns looked mortal. And for the first time since breaking from the bloodline, Jey Uso looked like a man without a path. As cameras cut to the commentary desk, even Corey Graves struggled to find words. I don't think this was about revenge, he said. I think this was a warning. Backstage, chaos continued to unfold. Triple H, visibly rattled, was seen on the phone, shouting into the receiver. Security was doubled. Superstars were pulled from interviews. And somewhere, far from the noise, Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker walked into the night, unpunished, untouched, undefeated. The footage from the attack was replayed on the Titantron later that night. And as thousands of fans watched Roman Reigns' body slump to the floor, the arena went silent. No boos. No cheers. Just silence. The kind of silence that follows a dethroning. The kind of silence that feels permanent. In the hours that followed, WWE officials released a statement. Roman Reigns and Jey Uso are being evaluated for injuries sustained during an unprovoked backstage assault. SummerSlam implications are under review. But behind that polished language, panic. Because if Roman Reigns isn't cleared for SummerSlam, if Jey Uso can't compete, who stands in their place? Who faces the monsters who now roam freely backstage? There are whispers that Seth Rollins has been informed that Cody Rhodes has offered to step up. But there's also another name being whispered. A name Roman uttered. Jacob Fatu. Could this be the moment he returns to reclaim what was once promised? Could this attack have been a false flag, designed to bait the Bloodline into revealing its true leader? Nothing is certain. But one thing is. Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker just rewrote the rules. They didn't call their shot. They didn't ask for permission. They walked into the lion's den, and they left the lions bleeding. And as WWE counts down the final days to SummerSlam, every camera, every microphone, and every fan now asks the same question: who survives the reckoning that's coming? Because this wasn't just an attack. This was a declaration. And if Roman Reigns, bloodied, betrayed, and broken, can't answer that declaration, then the empire he built may fall before the bell even rings. We pick up in the aftermath of chaos. Roman Reigns and Jey Uso had both been wheeled out of the arena on stretchers. Their futures uncertain. Their legacies shaken. But while EMTs rushed and fans gasped, a very different kind of meeting was taking place in a shadowed corner of the building. Paul Heyman stood alone in a service hallway, phone pressed to his ear, the same calm composure etched on his face that once accompanied the rise of Brock Lesnar and the coronation of the tribal chief. But this time? His hand was trembling. Sources backstage claim Heyman wasn't shocked by the attack. No. What rattled him was who wasn't answering their phone. He called Solo Sikoa straight to voicemail. He texted Jacob Fatu. No reply. Even Zilla Fatu had reportedly left the building long before the attack even began. Was this premeditated silence? Or something more sinister? Because while the spotlight shone on Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker, those who know the rhythms of Bloodline politics felt it. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was a message coded in violence. And the message? Roman's time is over. Step aside or be buried. Meanwhile, Bronson Reed was spotted leaving the building. Not through the front like a man seeking attention, but through a loading dock exit, flanked by two men in plain black hoodies. No words. No interviews. Just a nod to the camera as the shutter clicked. It wasn't just arrogance. It was assurance. Like he knew something the rest of us didn't. Inside the arena, Jey Uso regained consciousness long enough to ask one question to an attending medic: "Where's Jimmy?" The implications were chilling. Jey had spent months trying to pull away from the legacy of the Bloodline, fighting his way back into singles competition, trying to carve out an identity separate from the shadows of Roman and Jimmy. But when bodies drop and alliances collapse, instincts don't lie. His first thought wasn't of vengeance. It was of betrayal. Because if Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker were just the fists, then who was the mastermind? That's where Jimmy Uso enters the story. Though absent from WWE programming in recent weeks, Jimmy was recently spotted training with Jacob Fatu and Hikuleo in a closed gym in Tampa, just miles from the last known location of Roman Reigns before this Monday's show. The footage surfaced days before Raw but was quickly pulled from social media. The leak was short-lived, but damning. The image showed Jimmy standing with his arms crossed while Fatu sparred with Reed. Coincidence? Or rehearsal? The Bloodline has always operated like a chessboard, where moves are made 4 steps ahead of public perception. But with the betrayal so fresh and brutal, that logic now cuts deeper. Because if this was Jimmy's return, it wasn't to rejoin his brother. It was to destroy everything Jey still believed in. By midnight, as headlines swept the internet and social media drowned in theories, one truth became impossible to ignore: Roman Reigns was no longer in control. His silence, once powerful, now felt like a void. And inside that void, power-hungry wolves were beginning to howl. Bron Breakker took to X, formerly Twitter, with a cryptic post just hours after Raw. Alpha. Apex. Anarchy. 3 words. No context. But when paired with what we witnessed, Roman left unconscious, Jey Uso broken, it read less like a tweet and more like a prophecy. And if Breakker was the apex, who gave him the crown? That question shook WWE to its core. Inside the production trucks, executives debated whether to air the full backstage footage on next week's SmackDown. Some argued it was too brutal. Others, including Triple H, allegedly insisted it was too important not to show. The footage, they claim, reveals something the live feed didn't catch. Roman's reaction before the first strike. His eyes, wide with realization. Not fear. Not confusion. Recognition. He knew what was coming. And he knew who sent it. Because just before Breakker's knee crushed his ribs, Roman whispered one word under his breath. No, not shouted. Not a scream. Just no, as if pleading with the ghost of an ally turned enemy. Speculation exploded. Fans dug up every past rivalry Roman ever had. But they all landed on the same name. Paul Heyman. Could the man who once managed the Beast, who then built the Tribal Chief, now be engineering a new dynasty? And if so, is Bronson Reed the enforcer? Is Bron Breakker the heir? That night, cameras caught a final glimpse of Reigns being loaded into the ambulance. He raised a hand, not in a wave, not in surrender, but with 3 fingers raised. It wasn't a random gesture. 3 fingers. 3 letters. 1 statement. I'm still him. Was it denial? A promise? A challenge? Whatever it meant, it triggered shockwaves in every locker room from Florida to Stanford. Because Roman Reigns doesn't go down easy. And when he rises, he does so with fury. Back inside the arena, as the crowd filtered out and the Titantron dimmed, Jey Uso was escorted quietly through a side corridor. No cameras. No promo. Just a towel pressed to his jaw and a question lingering in his mind. What if this isn't just about Roman? What if he was the target all along? What if Bronson Reed and Breakker were sent not to dismantle the bloodline, but to eliminate Jey before he could rise again? In that moment, every moment of Jey's past flashed before him. The superkick to Roman. The moment he walked out. The times he hesitated to fight his own family. All of it led here. And now he has a choice. Stay silent, or strike back. Sources close to WWE Creative suggest SummerSlam's main event is being rewritten as we speak. And with Roman's condition in question, and Jey Uso battered, the rumors grow louder. Is this building toward a fatal 4-way war? Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso versus Bronson Reed versus Bron Breakker. Or something even darker? A war for the soul of the bloodline itself. Meanwhile, Seth Rollins has reportedly demanded answers from Triple H. As the former architect of the Shield, he knows a factional collapse when he sees one. And he's seen how quickly chaos spreads when leaders fall. As he left the building Monday night, Seth was caught on a hot mic backstage whispering to Michael Cole, he's not the tribal chief anymore. He's just a target. The game has changed. Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker didn't just attack. They made a move on the throne. And as SummerSlam approaches, WWE stands on the edge of a cliff. With Paul Heyman silent, Solo Sikoa absent, Jimmy Uso in hiding, and Jacob Fatu playing both sides, no one knows who will rise next. But one thing is certain. The kings have fallen. And the wolves are already inside the castle. It's been 72 hours since the attack that left Roman Reigns and Jey Uso battered in the shadows of the Raw arena. In that short time, everything has changed. The Bloodline, once an indestructible empire, now resembles a battlefield. And while the world waits for an official response, WWE SmackDown quietly prepares for what might be its most important broadcast of the year. But before the show can begin, an unexpected piece of footage begins to circulate online. Not through official WWE channels. Not leaked by a journalist. It comes from a fan's phone, grainy, shaky, but unmistakably real. Roman Reigns. In a hospital bed. hooked to monitors. His face is swollen. His left eye bruised shut. A gauze bandage wraps around his ribs, and yet, his voice, though hoarse, carries unmistakable fire. The caption? Message to Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker. From the bed to the battlefield. Roman speaks slowly. There's no tribal chief posturing here. No finger pointing or chest thumping. Just a man stripped down to his most primal essence. I've been hunted before, he says. By legends. By monsters. By men who wanted to wear my crown. And by brothers who forgot who helped build theirs. But this? This wasn't just an attack. This was a betrayal masked as ambition. He breathes deep, winces. And that's fine. You want the throne? You better bring an army. Then, with a shaky but deliberate lift of his hand, he removes the oxygen cannula from his nose. You didn't finish the job. And with that, he stares into the camera. Not with hate. But with certainty. You made me bleed, now I make you remember. The video ends. It's less than a minute long. But it hits like a thunderclap. And within hours, it's all over social media. #RomanReturns trends worldwide. But behind the excitement, there's an undertone of tension. Because the Roman Reigns in that video isn't declaring war with a smile. He isn't playing the long game anymore. He's promising retribution. At SmackDown, the locker room is divided. Some superstars keep their distance from anything Bloodline related. Others pick sides quietly, aligning themselves with Breakker and Reed out of fear or opportunism. But the night's real explosion comes when Paul Heyman finally appears on screen. No music. No announcement. Just Heyman walking slowly through a dim corridor, carrying a briefcase. He stops in front of the camera. His eyes are bloodshot, his shirt untucked. I warned you, he whispers. I told you he would rise. He opens the briefcase. Inside is Roman Reigns' ceremonial lei. Bloodstained. Torn. I watched them tear it from him like scavengers on a battlefield. Like cowards who think momentum means dominance. Heyman pauses, eyes filled with something deeper than rage, regret. You wanted war. You're about to get it. But don't say I didn't warn you when the tribal chief returns, not to lead. Not to speak. But to destroy. He closes the briefcase and walks away. That segment alone sends the WWE Universe into a frenzy. Later that night, an emergency main event is announced. Bronson Reed vs. Solo Sikoa. Not next week. Not at SummerSlam. Tonight. But just as the bell is about to ring, Solo doesn't walk out. Instead, it's Jey Uso. He walks alone, hood up, mic in hand. I came here to deliver a message, he says. Not from Solo. Not from Roman. From me. He climbs into the ring. Face to face with Bronson Reed. The crowd holds its breath. You think you're the future? Jimmy snarls. You ain't even family. And just like that, he super kicks Reed straight across the jaw. The match never happens. Chaos ensues. Breakker runs in. So does Jey. For a moment, it's brother against brother. Reed and Breakker against both Usos. But then, the lights cut out. Not a flicker. A blackout. When the lights return, only one man is standing in the ring, Jacob Fatu. The crowd erupts. No one knows what side he's on. But he's holding something in his hand. A steel chain. The same one Solo Sikoa once used to choke Jey Uso months ago. Jacob drops it at Jimmy's feet. Then he turns, and spears Bron Breakker out of his boots. The crowd goes insane. Bronson Reed tries to grab him from behind, but Jacob hits a spinning back elbow and throws him out of the ring like a ragdoll. Now it's just Jacob, standing between Jimmy and Jey. He looks at both. Doesn't speak. just points to the SummerSlam logo. And mouths 3 words, "Final War begins." The message is clear. Jacob Fatu isn't picking sides. He's declaring war. And at the center of that war? Roman Reigns. The final shot of SmackDown is a close-up of Jacob Fatu holding up the bloodstained chain. Jey and Jimmy on either side. Bron Breakker unconscious. Bronson Reed nowhere to be seen. The tribal war has begun. And SummerSlam? It's not just a match card. It's the reckoning. The next 24 hours after SmackDown are chaos. WWE executives enter emergency meetings. Emails flood production departments. Creative is reportedly told to prepare for the most unpredictable SummerSlam in over a decade. But backstage, there's something else stirring: fear. Because for all the destruction that Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker have caused, for all the chaos Jacob Fatu unleashed, everyone knows the one thing that hasn't happened yet. Roman Reigns hasn't returned in person. And that silence? It's deafening. The bloodline may be fractured. The chain of command may be unclear. But Roman Reigns has never been just a man. He's an idea. An unrelenting force. And now that he's been humiliated, now that he's bled, what comes next is not diplomacy. It's demolition. Monday Night Raw opens with Paul Heyman walking into the arena with a black envelope in his hand. No suit. No tie. Just a somber stare. He climbs into the ring to deliver a message, but not his own. He begins, voice cracking, "For 10 years, I've stood beside monsters, kings, legends, but no one, and I mean no one, has ever responded to betrayal the way Roman Reigns does. You see, you don't just beat Roman Reigns. You unleash him." Heyman pauses, raises the envelope. In my hand is a letter. A sealed statement written by the tribal chief himself. Because while his body heals, his mind, his strategy, has already begun. The arena falls into a hush. Heyman opens the envelope and begins to read. SummerSlam is not a show. It is not a celebration. It is not a main event. It is judgment. I am not coming to compete. I am not coming to entertain. I am coming to end this story. Breakker, Reed, Fatu, Uso, there will be no alliance. No rescue. No survivors. I walk alone. Heyman folds the letter. The silence in the arena stretches like glass, taut, thin, ready to shatter. That same night, footage emerges of Roman training in a private gym in Florida. The video, reportedly leaked from security footage, shows Reigns lifting with one arm still bandaged. Every rep is deliberate. Focused. Controlled rage. But what shocks fans more is the footage that follows. A second angle. A blurred figure in the background. Seth Rollins. Standing in the corner. Watching. Arms crossed. Within hours, hashtags trend worldwide, hashtag the Shield again? Hashtag burn it down or bow down? Hashtag Reigns off vengeance speculation explodes. Has Roman called on his past to secure his future? Or has Seth returned to finish what Reed and Breakker started? By midweek, WWE announces a closed-door press event set to air 72 hours before SummerSlam. The location is undisclosed. Attendance is invitation only. But rumors swirl. Roman Reigns is going to speak, for the first time since the attack. When the day arrives, a dark screen fades into a private room. Roman sits at a long table. Alone. The ceremonial lay beside him. His expression is unreadable. He leans forward. "There was a time I believed in family," he says quietly. "A time I thought loyalty was eternal. That if I gave everything, my bloodline would never betray me." He pauses. "They proved me wrong." His eyes lift. "At SummerSlam, I don't want a title. I don't want respect. I don't want the throne." He slams his fist on the table. "I want revenge. That night, WWE releases the official main event graphic. SummerSlam 2025, the Bloodline Final War Fatal 5-Way No-Holds-Barred Elimination Match. Roman Reigns vs. Jey Uso vs. Jimmy Uso vs. Jacob Fatu vs. Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker. As a team, no managers. No alliances. One ring. One tribal legacy at stake. But even as the card is announced, a final twist shocks the WWE Universe. Solo Sikoa posts a short video, filmed in a hotel room. He speaks directly into the camera. "You all forgot one thing. I don't fight for the Bloodline. I am the Bloodline. See you at SummerSlam." And just like that, everything shifts. Now it's 6 men. Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, Jacob Fatu, Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker, Solo Sikoa. All of them with one goal: to end each other. The commentary team begins calling it the Anoa'i Civil War. And behind the scenes, WWE begins building something unprecedented. A SummerSlam stage built not just for spectacle, but for history. 6 entrances. 6 colors. 6 banners. The pre-match package is rumored to be narrated by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson himself, who was spotted at the WWE Performance Center days before the event. And then, on the eve of SummerSlam, a final twist. A new stipulation is announced. The last man standing gets the final word. A live mic. In front of the WWE Universe. 1 minute. Uncensored. The crowd erupts. Because now, it's not just about survival. It's about legacy. About who gets to define the future. About who gets to bury the past. The night before SummerSlam, Roman Reigns posts a single photo to Instagram. His hand. Wrapped in tape. A single phrase written across the knuckles: "You chose this." No caption. No comment. Just a silent promise. That when the lights come on in the stadium, the war ends. Or everyone falls. The lights inside Allegiant Stadium dim, plunging the 70,000-seat arena into blackness. A slow tribal drum begins to beat, deep and foreboding, echoing across the silence. One by one, 6 spotlight beams descend on the entrance stage, forming a jagged hexagon. Each beam represents one warrior. Each man walking into this match carries not just a story, but a vendetta. The Bloodline War is no longer theoretical. It's here.